yeah, what I thought I would do is actually return back to the PC Engine Turbo Express that I've got and actually recap the whole console. I haven't totally recapped it before. I think I've only replaced 2 caps to improve the screen and also the volume. I think when I did that, it made a minor difference to the volume, but did help out with the screen. Now, I had this console on the other day and I kept it running for about, I don't know, for about 20 minutes, and then suddenly after about 20 minutes the screen started to go dim, and I thought, whoa, okay, that's definitely a cap issue. So instead of actually finding the cap that's knackered or sort of taking potluck on which cap I need to replace, I'm going to do the full lot. I'm going to replace everything, which I didn't really want to do because it's an absolute ball ache, but I've set aside today or this morning to just slowly do a complete cap replacement. I've been onto eBay and I've bought a total replacement kit, which is, I can't think how many are in here, 15, 16, something like that, but there's a load of caps in there, absolute rake of them. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to replace every single one. Undoubtedly it will take me a fair bit of time. I'm going to take my time on this, I'm not going to rush. If I rush I'll start pulling stuff off and start knackering stuff, and now I can't actually show you on here which ones I have done, so let's unplug it first. Fairly easy to undo, but you just have to take your time, like with everything to do with electronics. Just take your time. Don't rush it because you'll end up breaking something, as I've done many a time before. Now the only cap that I replaced in essence was this one here underneath, which is one of the sound ones, and the video one, which is, and you probably, here we go there, which is that one there, and that's been replaced, that's a new one. Now I'm not sure whether or not that is still knackered, or whether that's knackered now, or whether it's one of these other caps around here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I think that one stays there. So yeah, so that's a hell of an amount of caps to replace, and it's the reason why I've never done it before, because I just couldn't be arsed to sit there and take all those off. Like that shielding's got to come off, so I'm going to unsolder that. I mean, it's not a major thing to do, but it's just a pain in the arse. Right, the first stage that I've done is I was effectively looking at the caps I needed to replace and how easy it was to get to a number of the caps. Now some of them around this side, well these ones around here were a lot easier to get to than the ones around by the sort of sound area of the board, and you've got specifics around the video output of the board here, and before it had the heat shielding on top there, and it makes it difficult. It makes it difficult. So to make the whole process easier, it will be a lot easier to take the heat shielding off. That's what I've done. Now unfortunately you have this heat shielding, sorry, on the underside of the board as well, and actually where this solders into the underside of the board, and there's some overlap between the two heat shielding. There is a overlap with some of the heat shielding solder points, so what you have to actually do is unsolder the rear one first, and that enables you to get access then to some of the points that are hidden for the top shielding. So it's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but I thought, look, I'm going to do this properly, I'm going to take my time, so I might as well just take the heat shielding off, and just to make the whole job easier. So that's what I've done. And actually taking the top heat shielding off has actually discovered another cap there underneath. I haven't got a clue what that is for, and I'm not sure whether the cap kit I've got covers that specific cap, but it makes sense to take the whole heat shielding off, to be honest, because certainly there's caps around here. There's one here, there's a cap here. It makes sense to lay the cap this way, so you can hide it under the heat shielding, because you can't have the cap sticking out over here, because it means that this board won't go down properly. So it does make sense. You've got a couple of caps here that I can actually have going sort of in towards the board, and these are two of the pain in the arse caps as well as regards to the heat shielding in a way. So it makes absolute sense to take the heat shielding off. So if you're going to do this properly, I would suggest taking the heat shielding off. Just a little tip, guys, for those of you that don't know about how to correctly desolder components already on a board, especially surface mounted stuff. It's a lot easier if you apply solder on the original solder joints before you try to desolder. That might sound a bit stupid, because you think, well, why are you trying to actually put solder back onto a component that you want to take off? And the reason for that is to enable you to get a nice surface area that you can apply a lot of heat into to desolder correctly. Nothing worse than trying to pull an old component off a board, not get enough heat into the component leg or whatever, and the solder pad, and effectively you end up pulling it off the board, and you can damage the board and all sorts. So if you're having difficulty taking components off the actual board itself, if you apply a little bit of solder, well, you should do this anyway, but apply a little bit of solder to the existing point, that enables you to get more heat into that part of the component, to be able to actually take it off without knackering the board up. And effectively, once you've done that, you take the component off, is you should clean the pad, and that's easily done by reflowing the solder that's on there and possibly adding a little bit more. So that's basically what I've just done. I've just took a component off and I've reflowed the solder to bring the pads back to life. Added a little bit more solder, so I've got a good contact point to add the component back into. I'm about halfway through, or just over halfway through now, and I've effectively replaced all of the caps on this side of the board. So it's all the video side of the board, including the hidden cap that was underneath the heat shielding, which is that one there. Now the one that I haven't been able to replace is this one here. It's because this wasn't within the cap replacement kit. I'm going to have a look to see if I've got a relevant size cap to replace that. I don't think I have, but I'll have another check just to make sure. But this is effectively the side of the board that's got the most caps on there that you replaced anyway. So it's all round here as regards to the top half of the video output stage, and there's 4 caps there. Now these two here were the most awkwardest to replace, but I've replaced those. These ones down here, there's 4 here in this area that were replaced, and there's one there. So I'm now going to move over to the audio side. I've taken all the caps off the audio side, and it is slightly fiddly round here, but if you take the heatsink off, which obviously sits over here, it's a lot easier to get to those caps. Now, one of these caps, when I removed them, I did move the trace off the PCB. So again, you've got to be really careful. I'm hoping that I haven't totally knackered the trace. The trace is still there, and I've put a solder pad on top of the trace. I just hope it hasn't broke sort of further down, but I think I'm going to be okay. But again, it's just to reinforce the fact that you've just got to be really careful when you take these components off, and not to put too much pressure without getting appropriate heat into the solder pad. Right, so I've finally done the sound side of the board and replaced all the caps there. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this one here, 6. Now that And the previous component that I said that I'd taken off and it had lifted the track, yeah, it's actually pulled the whole track off, which is a bit of a, well, not the whole track, but part of the track's been pulled off. So I've had to do a bit of a bodge repair on that. Slight bit of an issue, guys. Yeah, the PC engine GT stroke Turbo Express doesn't work. After all that extensive modding that I've just done, and the sound is brilliant, it is like, blows me brains, it's that loud, really, really loud sound on it, so great, so it's fixed the sound on it, but the screen is still dim. So I've done all the cap replacements, and actually the cap that I had referred to in the video, the last one that I didn't think I had a cap for, I actually managed to find a cap for that and replace that. So I've done an absolute full cap replacement. All the caps are on correctly, right polarity, correct cap. I've gone back over all the joints to make sure they're all okay and everything, but I'm still getting a dim screen. So basically what I do is I turn the GT on. It's quite dim anyway, but over the space of about 5 minutes it basically goes down to nothing. The backlight is fine as regards to working, it does work. I've actually stripped the whole screen down, which I didn't really want to do, but I stripped the whole screen, down, and the fluorescent tube is fine, it's lighting, but the actual brightness variable resistor on the side of the unit, you can turn that up or down, it makes absolutely no change to the image at all. I've been on the internet and I can't find anything at all about any other problem that this could be. So it's obviously not a cap because I've replaced all the caps. So guys, I'm in your hands, please help me. If there's anyone out there that knows anything as regards to what else this could be, I'm suspecting it's another component, but I don't know what it is. So if you guys know what it is, it's basically, it's as if it's a cap replacement. But it obviously isn't in this case because I've replaced all the caps. So if there's anybody out there that has got any knowledge or has found or can find any information, I've gone through the internet, well obviously not the whole of the internet, but I've used Google and I can't find anything, because every single thing about a dim screen goes back to cap replacements, and everyone that's done that has fixed the problem. So I don't know what this is, so I'd really appreciate your help, guys. If anyone knows any information that would be really useful to me, please drop me a comment. I beg you, please. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Speak to you again soon.